Okay, we're going to continue on with our sales data. We're doing some data science practice problems. This is the third set. We're kind of rolling now. We've got everything we need. We've got a pretty nice utils file with everything we need. So let's just start out on. We did 6, 7, and 8 last time. We can duplicate all those and finish out 9, 10, and 11. We'll do that at the end. But we want to knock out these. So these are all annual problems, right? So it has to do with a particular product. And so here we were trying to find the months that generated the largest revenue, gross profit, and net profit. Now we want to know annually what product generates the most revenue or gross profit or that sort of thing. So what product generated the most revenue? What product sold the best in terms of quantity? So that has to do with just the number that were sold, and then what product was the most profitable over the entire year. So this is going to be gross profit and what was the amount, right? And then the same thing for revenue, least revenue, what one sold the worst in terms of quantity, and what one was the least profitable gross profit. All right, so we're rolling. We've got everything we need now. So let's go ahead and duplicate number 8. We're going to pop over to 12. And we want the product generated the most revenue. So we're going to be using this revenue, that's price times quantity. All right, so our calculation is going to be revenue. And we did revenue in, what, number 6? So we can take a look there and basically, this is the calculation for revenue, right? So this is going to be sort of our calculation that we're starting with. All right, but this is a little different. So one of the things that's different is here our calculation was based on monthly sales. Here we need annual sales. So how do we get annual sales? If we saw that all the sales, this is a list of lists. The first item is the month of January. The second item is the month of February. Instead, what we want is just one list with all of those values in them. We don't want it separated by months. We just want all the annual sales. So what's a way that we can kind of get that value? And also, first of all, what are we going to need here? We definitely need customers because we need the tax rates, and I don't think we need expenses. We still need all the sales, right? But now we need to convert this. This is a list of lists, so a list of the individual months. We want annual sales, right? Which is going to be a list of just all of the individual sales, not separated by the month, right? So a list of individual sales versus a list of lists of individual sales. So how can we do this? We can use a list comprehension for this. The idea being is we're going to say, for sale in all sales. So this is going to be for, I guess, monthly sale in all sales. All right, so we're going to use a list comprehension, and the thing on the left-hand side is what we return in our final list, right? So with list comprehensions, you can use a nested list comprehension. So for monthly sale in all sales, so that gives us, this variable is going to be holding a list of all the individual sales for a month. Then for each one of those, I can say for sale in monthly sale. So this is the monthly sales, and this is all sales is all months. It's a list of all the individual months, right? So this is going to be our monthly sales. For each individual sale in those monthly sales, right, that's what we're going to be returning over here. Here we have a sale. And so what this should do is this should give us a nice list of all of the individual sales, and they're no longer partitioned by month, right? So this is kind of a nice way to use comprehensions to collapse a list of lists into just a list of the individual items in the second tier lists, right? So we could take a peek at this. We don't really need to look at it. So here's our calculation. Our calculation is going to just take in all of the sales right? And then we have the product. Make sure we have what we need here: customers, products, tax rates, and all sales. We get the annual sales. So for sale and sales, so we're gonna have to pass in annual sales here. And we don't need this for loop anymore. We don't need the expenses. So we're just getting our calculation. All right, and so this is going to be annual sales, not just the whole list of them. So this is going to give us the value. So what we're calculating here is the value for, it was the value for a particular month. Now we want sort of a dictionary, probably. We want a dictionary of all of the individual products. All of these questions have to do with products, right? So I want to know which product had the greatest revenue. Right, so instead of this value here, we're going to have a dictionary. And basically, for whatever product that is, we need to check to see, we get the product, we get the customer, we get the tax rate, and then this is going to be our revenue, right? So this is the value that we're going to add to our dictionary, right? So we're going to say if the product product ID make sure I get the casing right. So this is basically the name of the product. Product ID. So if we look back in our data, we look at the products. That's going to be like widget, fidget, trinket, that sort of thing. So if that is in our dictionary, keys, or if it's not in there, right, then we need to add it, right? So that means we've got a new product here. So each one of these sales, like if we look at the sales entry, it has a product and a quantity, right? So we're gonna be accumulating the revenue for each one of these, but here we've got a brand new product that we don't have in our dictionary, so we have to add it, and so we're keeping track of the revenue for baubles. Here we've got a new item, so we're going to keep track of the revenue for gadgets, right? And so if the product name, right, the product ID is not in our list of dictionary keys, then we're going to add it. So we have DI, and it's the product ID, so that's the actual key. So the name, like widget or gadget or trinket or something like that, is the key, and then the value is going to be, we'll just say it's 0, and then we can say down here for our dictionary, basically, this thing, we're going to say plus equals, and that's our value, whatever value we're trying to calculate. So in this case, the value, this represents, revenue. That's the value we're calculating. Right, so this should give us a dictionary of all of the items, all of the products, and their associated revenues for the entire year. Right, so that's what our calculation is giving us. Need the monthlies anymore, but what we can do is we can print this out to see what we have. We can say for key value in dictionary.items. This gives you a list of tuples, and the first item in the tuple is a key, and the second item in the tuple is a value from the dictionary. And so then you can use this syntax to set the individual variables k and v equal to the items in the tuple. So this is kind of a nice little syntax Python lets you use. And so for those, we can kind of print out, what we have, just to make sure, things are, just to make sure we have what we think we have, right? So, so for a key and a value, we've got Um, the key is going to be the item name, right? And then the value is going to be just the dollar amount for the revenue, right? So something like this, let's add a formatter. We're going to left justify the content. So this is, think of this as an arrow. Which direction is the content going to be justified? To the left or to the right? This would be right justifying. We're going to left justify it. What is the character we want to pad? So if we're justifying something to the left and then there's a window of characters, how big is the window of characters? We can say something like it's 10 characters wide, and then this character, whatever we have in here, is what we're padding with, right? So we're going to pad with just the empty space. We could pad with zeros for numbers sometimes, right? But we're padding the string. The string is going to be left justified, and the padding is going to be on the right. And then what's the window of characters that we're doing this all in? And it's a 10 character window. So that's what that means. So we're injecting this. So this means there's always going to be 10 characters here. The reason we're doing this is just so that all the numbers line up. It's just kind of a nice way to look at your data. So we've got the key and then the value here. So the value is going to be a float, but we want it to look a little bit nicer. So we'll have like a $sign, and we'll say we want to add commas and round to 2 floating point decimals. Right, and so we'll just do that to start with. We'll comment this out, and we'll see what we have for number 12. Right, so fidget, bobble, right? Let's see what I'm saying about the padding here, the calculation, and we have an extra space here. So it's 10 characters. If I put a 0 in here, then all of the padding here, spaces will be zeros, right? So if I run that. So that character is just what you want to fill in that extra. This is 10 character window. It's just what you want to fill in there, right? So I want spaces. Obviously that looks much better. All right, so now what we need to do is we find the max, right? Find the maximum value. So the way we did it before is kind of by sorting. The problem with that is we have a tuple. We have a list of tuples here in dictionary.items, but we need kind of the reverse of that because we need to, when we're sorting something, it's the first value in the list of items. So we kind of have to do a little trickery here. It's not really trickery. We're just going to make a new list. So dictionary.items, I'll print that out for you so you can see what it looks like. di.items, and we can print that out. That's going to be an iterable, so I want to make it a list. Okay, so we see when you say dictionary.items, you're making an iterable, but if it's basically a generator that will generate a tuple each time you call for the next value. So the tuple is the key from the dictionary and then the value from the dictionary, right? So that's the KV. So that's why we kind of use this syntax for KV in dictionary.items. Those two individual items in the tuple get separated out into these two individual variables, right? So that's what was going on there. What we want, though, is we want these flipped because we want this value to be the first item in the tuple because that's what we want to sort by. We're looking for the largest or the smallest, right? So in order to do that, we're going to need to make a little list, make a list comprehension basically, and we can say and instead of key value, we want value key tuple, right? So basically we're going to do a list comprehension. We're going to say for key comma value in dictionary.items, right? And then what are we going to return? Well, we want to return a tuple that is the opposite. It's value comma key. So this is a tuple, and so when we get this, we should be able to print out li here and see that it is reversed. Right, and so now we've got the number and then the fidget. So now we can sort this. Right, so Python has a really nice sorting method that allows you to sort lists of tuples, and that way there's extra data associated with the thing you're sorting. So we need to keep track of not just which number was the highest, but which number that related to. Right, so this is the fidget. So we sort here and we find the largest number. If any of these match, then it moves on to the next field and sorts by that as the kind of tiebreaker. So we can use the sorting algorithm or the sort method, li.sort, right? And again, if we wanted to make this look a little bit nicer, we can use this little trick where we expand the list into individual arguments to the print statement, and we say separator equals and then a new line character, and so this will print out everything one line at a time, right? And so this is sorted now. So this is sorted, so everything's increasing, 179, right, on up, and then this goes up even more. So that looks correct. If we want the most, we would say reverse sort equals true. And so this would invert it. Right, and so the largest number is first. Okay, so we could use the sorting algorithm. We don't really need sort though. We just want to know what the maximum is, right? So we can use our max function again. So we have some tuple that's going to be the maximum. We'll call it m, and we want to pass in our list. So we don't have to sort it. You can if you want to, right? So you can have that line up there, just if we wanted to print that out. So so we're kind of approaching a similar feel for what we had before. There we go. Let's see, get rid of that. There we go. So max, what are we finding the max of? So we're finding not the months, but this is the product. So we're gonna say, how do we do it in the answers? The product in quotes. All right. So we'll say the backslash quotes, and then this is the product. So the product is actually the second item in the tuple m, right? So it had the most revenue, right? Make sure we're matching. Here it says the fidget had the most annual revenue. So add the word annual with, and then the first item separated with commas rounded to 2 decimal places. And then so now we can run 12 again. The fidget, and it is 1,245,69317. Oops, and so we have 1,245,69317. All right, so that looks good, and so we can basically duplicate this and move on to the next thing, which was number 13, which one had the best in terms of quantity. Now, just like the other one, we spent most of the time last time solving number 6. Once we got number 6, they were all easy, right? Same situation here, so we can knock these out real quickly, quite quickly. Duplicate, let's say this is number 13. What are we trying to find here? So total quantity sold, and what was the number? All right, so we have our calculation. Our dictionary is going to be the total quantity sold, so we can get that from the products table. So we don't need customers or tax rate, right? So this is not revenue anymore. This is just quantity. So the value I have here is the quantity. So I'm really just keeping track of quantity. That's it. Sale quantity. How many was sold? And then I have my dictionary. And so that gives me that. I had the most And how did we do this in the answers? The most units with. Okay, and so this should be should not be dollars, and so it should not. It should be formatted with commas, but it's an integer. It's a count, so it shouldn't be a floating point decimal. It's not a big deal if it is, but you know, if it's integers, it doesn't really make sense to have the zeros on there. So we're on 13. The widget had the most units with 92,305. The widget sold the most units with 92,305, so we'll change that to sold. All right, and then we'll duplicate 12 again because the next one's about dollars again, and we were using dollars in the response. So this should be 14, and number 14 is what product was the most profitable over the entire year, gross profit, and what was the amount. Okay, so we're looking for gross profit. So again, we don't need customers or tax rate. So revenue is one of the harder ones because we needed the customer and the tax rate. So this is not the revenue anymore. This is the gross profit. So we've got gross profit here. This is gross profit. And so how do we calculate that? It's product price minus product cost times the quantity, and we don't need to worry about the sales tax. All right, so we've got the value, and then we do the same thing with the dictionary. We do our calculation. We invert the tuple pairs, and then we sort them, and we get the maximum. Right, so this had the most annual revenue, so this is not annual revenue, this is annual gross profit. Let's see if that's the way the answer specifies it. Annual gross profit, yes, with, there we go. All right, so let's see what we get. Oops. Let's see, we want number 14. 561 638 40 is the fidget. That's the fidget. 561 638 40. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we've basically done all these. You just have to duplicate these files and then do change the max to minimum for the ones we haven't done. So we'll go ahead and knock those out. But then I'm going to show you a little trick to generate kind of this results file and what that would look like. Okay, so we have all of these things that management has asked us for. So we've got missing fields. We need to do number 3 and number 4 missing fields. So the zip and the state fields. That should be really easy. We'll duplicate this. We'll go 03. This is going to be zip field. Make sure that's right. Number 3 is zip fields are left blank. So we're calculating the number of blank fields in customers. The clean data is false. That's good. And so then we'll duplicate this and say 04 is the same thing except it's state fields. Right. So those are done now. We can test them real quick. 1.2%. What is the answer? 1.27. 1.27, right? So what is 04? 2.15. What is the answer? 2.15 missing state fields. So that's good. So those you saw, those were easy. Now basically for each one of these 6, 7, and 8, we have to find the least instead of the most, and so we can do that just by changing that max keyword to min. So I'll duplicate number 6, and that's actually going to be number 9. I do have to change the wording a little bit. So we'll duplicate 6 and we'll say 9. And we'll look at this one. This is going to say, this is going to be the minimum. Which one had the least revenue? All right, number 7 should be number 10. We want to find the minimum. And which one had the least? Right. And then number 8 should be number 11. So we'll duplicate that. And so, again, once you get a few of them, you can knock them out real fast. At least on these, right? So I had, which one had the least net profit? All right. So let's check our work. We want to look at 09. So should be February 391-65895. February 391-65895. There we go. Let's look at the next one. Should be February 193-38152. Should be February 193-38152. Alright, we'll look at number 11. Least net profit. So we just subtracted expenses really, so that these should be pretty close. 192-66865. All right, and we've got February again, 192-66865. Okay, so that's good. And so all we have to do now is finish out these. Same type of thing. We did all the hard parts by finding the max, and so we just replaced that keyword to min. So we can duplicate number 12, and this is going to be number 15. And we do have to change the wording again a little bit. So we'll say this is the minimum. And we'll say the blank had the least annual revenue. We'll duplicate number 13, and that'll be 16. And this is going to be sold the least units. And we have minimum. Right, and then the last one is 14 is going to be 17. So we'll duplicate this and have 17, and then scroll down, and we've got minimum and the least annual gross profit. Okay, so those are done. Let's check our answers. So this is going to be 15, 16, and 17. So we'll run number 15. The bobble, 179, 175, 90. The bobble, 179, 175, 90. That's good. 16. Doodad, 89,330. Doodad, 89,330. And then 17. The trinket, 120, 162.84. The trinket, 120, 162.84. Okay, so we solved all the problems. Now what we might want to do, again, we probably want to remember to go to utils, and instead of getting these from the individual files, we want to get them from the URL, so that way if we pass these files to somebody, like this data might change, right? And so like every year they might want to run this, right? But then the latest files might be in the same place online. So they could run this every single year and get the same type of reports. So that's one reason you might want to do it based on the URL. Another reason is, people might download the wrong file or might name it incorrectly or something like that. So you don't want to necessarily mess with all that. But it sort of just depends on what your goals are, what the company wants you to do. So there's some opportunity for wiggle room on that, depending on what exactly you're supposed to be doing. So one thing we can make this nicer is we want to kind of generate a file that looks like this. We want to generate a file that looks like answers.txt. So how can we do this? Let's make a new file. Oops, it's a new window. So this is a new file, and what we're going to do here is just make a little bash script that's going to allow us to execute these all these files individually, and then basically number them and then have the output like this. All right, so how do we want to do this? Let's see, where's our untitled here. So we'll save this as results.sh, and then something like this, user/bin/env, and this is just a bash script. Okay, so it's important to know a little bit about a lot of different programming languages. I personally don't really enjoy programming in bash, but it's something that you have to do occasionally. So if you know the basics, you can do some stuff. So most of the time I'm going to prefer to move to Python land, and we could do this. We could run all these at the subprocess module in Python, but it's an opportunity to make a quick little bash script. So what we can do is we can say we have the numbers of the files that we want, number 1, number 2, all the way to number 17. So we can make a little array, nums equals. There's probably a better way to do this in bash, but like I said, I'm not a big bash person, so I'm just going to go through and 03, 04, 05, 06, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So this is our array. That's how you make an array in bash. And then you can iterate over that array using this sort of syntax for the item in. And if we want to iterate over all the values in the numbers array, we say nums, and then use this little @ character syntax. And so this is basically for each value, and this is a reference to the individual values in the array. And so I becomes each one of those individual values, and then you have this syntax that's sort of like, do this thing. What are we going to do? We're going to echo something, and then when you're done with the for loop, you say done. So what do we want to echo? We want to echo that $sign I. So this is going to be 0, 1, right? If we look at the results file, we have 0, 1, period, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to do. So 0, 1, period. And then we want to execute something in bash. If you want to execute something and then have the result be stored in a variable or injected into a string or something like that, you use $, left and right parentheses. What do we want to execute? So we're going to call // and then $I again. So that's going to be 0, 1 the first time through the loop, .py. So what this is this is going to execute this command, and then the result of that is going to be placed in the string right here. So this is some bashisms for you. That's a quick little string, useful. Syntax is a little bit obtuse in my opinion, but it is what it is. So let's see if we can run this. We want to chmod all of our files. We've got the sh file now, and so we want results, and we want to push this into results.txt. Okay, so what this is going to do is normally this would all just print to my screen, but after if I use this greater than symbol, it's going to redirect the output of this command. So it's echoing it to the terminal, but it's going to redirect that. Instead of echoing to the terminal, it's going to put it in this file. So we can run this. It might take a second because it's data science. And so it's several large files. We're basically running all of these individual programs one after the other. Okay, so that completed. And so down here somewhere, we should have our results.txt. And it looks like we're pretty close to what we had in the answers. So we can do a little test to see if we're exactly the same. We can say, what's the difference between answers.txt and results.txt. Okay, so there's no difference. So if let's say results, I added an extra period in a couple places and then added some text down there. If we call diff, then we see the differences. So we see on line 8, right? And then we had some other differences. So it's pointing out the differences in the lines. If it doesn't return any output like it didn't before, that means they're identical. So if they're identical, then that means we got everything exactly right. All right, so I fixed it, and now the diff is identical again. All right, so that's some standard data science problems. In reality, they're probably going to be a little more complicated than that. But the important thing is to, make sure you set up your tools, make sure you have good tools. Ideally, we wouldn't be making our own read CSV or something like that, but there's always little utilities that you're going to need. So make sure you've got good tooling, and make sure things are reproducible, make sure they're generic, so you can run them like every year, for example. You can do little tricks like that. You can, run the date, and then based on the date, you might be able to download different files if the date's in the name or something like that. There's all sorts of different things you can do, but you want to try to make things reusable, and take your time with it. Make sure you get the calculations right. Usually once you get one calculation done, it'll help you solve several of the others. All right, so hopefully you got something out of these videos. I think that's good enough for now. So thanks for watching.